Hal Jordan is dead before this show has even finished its first episode. Frozen, shot in the head, ring missing, and the killer already on screen. You've already seen them, you just don't know it yet. That's the bet Lanterns is making with its premiere, that the clues to Hal's murder are sitting in plain sight 10 years before the body ever hits the snow. So today we're not just recapping episode 1, we're building the suspect list. We're going scene by scene through 2016 and asking one question: who in this episode had the motive, the access, and the nerve to take out one of the most powerful heroes on Earth? This isn't a recap. This is a manhunt, and the pilot already gave us every suspect. There is a full episode ahead. If you're not caught up, come back after you've watched. Everyone else grab a notepad because we're building a case. Before we get to Rushville, rewind to 1996. A kid gets an apple shot off his head by his own dad and doesn't even blink. Most breakdowns treat this as a cute origin beat. I don't think it's cute. I think it's a warning label. Whoever wrote this scene wanted us to know before anything else that John Stewart does not process fear the way normal people do. That's not just a character trait, that's a tool the show is going to need later. A guy who doesn't flinch under pressure is exactly the kind of guy you'd want investigating a murder nobody else can solve. Which raises the question, is this opening scene actually foreshadowing Hal's death? Is the show telling us right at minute 1 exactly who's going to be the one standing in those bleachers 10 years later, unflinching while everyone else falls apart? I think it is, and I think that's the first clue. Fast forward to 2016. Hal Jordan shows up late, ditches his ring on a dashboard, and jumps out of a moving car for what he calls training. Reckless, sure, but look closer. Hal has fame. Hal has access to classified alien intelligence through his ring. And Hal has a pattern of doing things his own way, off the books, without checking in with anyone, including, apparently, whoever's supposed to be keeping tabs on him. Every murder mystery needs a victim with secrets. Lanterns just happens to make that victim the main character. By the time Hal reaches the taco stand, he's already signing autographs like a man who's never once considered consequences. That kind of confidence gets people killed in every mystery ever written. So here's suspect theory number 1. Hal Jordan's death in 2026 isn't random. It's the price of 10 years spent operating exactly like he does in this pilot. Cutting corners, making enemies, and trusting the wrong people with information that gets people killed. Sheriff Kane spends this entire episode locking Hal out of her investigation. On the surface, that reads as a small-town cop protecting her turf from a superhero who thinks the rules don't apply to him. But rewatch it. Kane isn't just skeptical of aliens, she's specifically and aggressively determined to keep Hal away from that prisoner. That's not standard procedure. That's someone protecting information. And here's the detail that really moves the needle. Kane is married to Billy Makan, whose father runs a private militia obsessed with the exact alien activity happening in his own backyard. That's not a coincidental family tree. That's a household sitting at the center of whatever's actually going on in Rushville. So follow the theory. If William Makan's militia already knew something extraterrestrial was active in this town, and if Kane, through marriage, had access to that same information, then her freezing Hal out wasn't about jurisdiction. It was about controlling who got close to the truth. 10 years later, when Hal turns up dead in the exact same location, that starts to look a lot less like coincidence and a lot more like unfinished business. And here's the part that really bugs me. Kane doesn't hesitate for a second when it comes to arresting Hal, a literal superhero, but she drags her feet on basically everything involving the actual suspect. That imbalance only makes sense if she already had a read on what that prisoner was before Hal ever showed up asking questions. Speaking of the Makans, let's talk about William. He bails Hal out. He pushes Kane to get Hal into that interrogation room. On the surface, that plays as an ally move, the one guy in town who actually believes Hal's alien theory. But think about why a private citizen would build an entire militia around alien activity in a town this small. That's not a hobby, that's preparation. William Makan isn't reacting to a threat. He just discovered he's been ready for this for a long time, which means he likely knew, or at least suspected, exactly what Hal and John were walking into before they did. The guy who hands you the gun isn't always on your side. Sometimes he's just making sure the story gets told his way. If William Makan's militia has been tracking this alien activity independently, then Hal wasn't just investigating a mystery in 2016. He was walking straight into someone else's operation. And people who walk into operations they don't fully understand have a way of not making it out clean. If you're the kind of viewer who pauses a show to build a suspect board, yeah, same. Hit subscribe right now because this channel is about to go deep on every Lantern mystery this season, theory by theory. Okay, back to the case. Everyone's building their case around the humans in this episode. Nobody's talking about the actual alien. Think about what we know. This prisoner was already in Rushville before Hal or John ever arrived. He was armed, he was hiding, and he was involved in whatever happened at that football field in the first place. And when Hal finally corners him in that interrogation room, we get confirmation that he's not human, but we never actually get a motive. We never find out what he wanted, who he answers to, or whether he acted alone. The show gave us proof of an alien, it never gave us a reason. That's a massive gap for a pilot to leave open on purpose. If this prisoner has allies, other operatives already embedded in Rushville working quietly for a decade, then Hal Jordan didn't die because of one bad night in 2016. He died because he uncovered the tip of something much bigger, and whatever's underneath it had 10 full years to plan a response. Okay, I have to say the uncomfortable one. What if it's John? Hear me out before you close the tab. John Stewart is the only person confirmed to be present in both timelines, Lanterns, the 2016 investigation, and the 2026 discovery. He knows exactly where Hal's body ends up because he's the one who finds it. He knows exactly what happened in that interrogation room because he was standing right there. And out of every character in this episode, he's the only one the show has explicitly told us doesn't feel fear the way a normal person would. That doesn't make him guilty, but it makes him the one person with total access to both ends of this mystery. And a pilot this carefully constructed doesn't hand that kind of access to someone by accident. The detective with the alibi is still a suspect if he's the only one who was there for both crime scene. I don't think John pulled the trigger. I think the show wants us to at least consider it for about 4 seconds before moving on, and that's exactly the kind of misdirection a good mystery pilot is supposed to plant early. Everyone's asking who killed Hal Jordan. I think that's the wrong first question. The right first question is, where is his ring? A Green Lantern ring doesn't just fall off. It doesn't get lost. It chooses its wearer, and it stays with them, which means whoever separated that ring from Hal's body either overpowered him completely or the ring itself made a choice to leave. Sit with that for a second. What if the ring wasn't stolen? What if it left on its own because Hal was no longer worthy of carrying it? That would mean Hal's death isn't just a murder mystery. It's a worthiness test gone catastrophically wrong, and whoever or whatever the ring considers worthy next might already be a character we've met. A missing ring isn't a robbery. In this universe, it might be a verdict. Here's where I land based purely on what the pilot gives us. Sheriff Kane has the access. William Makan has the motive and the resources. And Hal Jordan has 10 years of reckless, rule-breaking behavior standing between 2016 and his death in 2026. Plenty of time to make an enemy out of someone we haven't even met yet. My money's on this. Whatever happened with that alien prisoner in 2016 didn't end when the episode ended. It kept going for a decade off-screen, and Hal's death is the final domino in a chain that started the moment he proved that prisoner wasn't human. The Makan family knew too much too early to be innocent bystanders. Kane's walls-up approach to that whole investigation looks a lot more like protection of a secret than protection of a jurisdiction, and the alien himself is still an open thread the show hasn't paid off yet. If I had to rank it, William Makan sits at the top of my list not because he pulled a trigger, but because a man who builds a private militia around a threat this specific doesn't stay hands-off once that threat becomes real. Kane's a close second, mostly because her silence in this episode reads less like ignorance and more like discipline. And John stays on the board too, if only because the show clearly wants him there. If this theory holds, John Stewart isn't just solving a murder when season 1 continues. He's finishing an investigation Hal started and never got to close. Every person from that 2016 timeline becomes a suspect the moment the show reveals Hal's death, and that's what makes this pilot so sharp. It's not front-loading its mystery. It's quietly building an entire suspect list 10 years in advance and daring you to notice. That's my review on who or what actually killed Hal Jordan, built entirely from clues sitting inside the very first episode. Whether it's Kane protecting a secret, Makan protecting an operation, or the ring itself passing judgment, Lanterns has already told us more than it looks like it has. Who's your prime suspect? Tell me your theory in the comments. I want to see what you caught that I didn't. And if you want the next theory breakdown the second episode 2 drops, make sure you're subscribed to Movie Break. See you in the next one.